Hello, this is Rob Mazak, and I'd like to take a moment to welcome you to the Life by Mazak podcast channel. Here on this channel, anything is possible. Any subject will and usually is discussed, and there's no telling how this message will unfold as we work through an idea, through an experience, or through a thought. These subjects come from the vast amount of information and experience through spirit, through life lessons, and from working with a lot of other people. Scripts are never used on this channel, and the message simply unfolds as the subject is discussed. Follow along and see where it leads us, or more specifically, where it leads me. These podcasts are produced in the hopes of helping others to benefit, to grow, and to excel in their own human experience. At Life by Mazak, we work towards helping you achieve wellness for your mind, your body, and your soul using many specialized services. Services that include psychic medium and tarot readings, quantum healing hypnosis, past life regression, intuitive Reiki healing, life coaching, and many other services. If you enjoyed this podcast, please click the like button and share this with others. Our goal is to reach as many people as we can with the knowledge that is shared on this podcast channel. Good day to everybody. I have been thinking about a lot of things lately, and mostly about things that we hold as the truth. And it is very difficult at best for anybody to really prove what they believe in, because our perception really drives our reality, and our reality is what gets presented to us, because our subconscious wants to support our perception. And so we really do believe in many things that are quite unseen or quite unprovable, that are really separated or different from what the truth may actually be, whatever the truth is. And so that led me to a word that popped in my head earlier today. It just kind of stuck and hung in there for most of the afternoon. That word is spirituality. And I think a lot of people throw that term around very loosely. But I think this is also in line with what I was just opening with, is that spirituality, we'll break that word down here in a few minutes, but spirituality is something that is very difficult to grasp, even the definition of it, and or to prove it. And it really, I think, comes down to a unique and individual experience that we all have, or experiences. But it is definitely something that's in the category of definition or an experience, or experiences that you cannot really prove to anybody. They're only true for you, and they're only experiences that you have. And there are some commonalities, yes. Spirituality is definitely one of those areas that is very broad. And the definitions that I found online are very, very wide and varied. And it's like even the word spirituality is difficult to put a definition to in a very logical and common sense way. Imagine having spiritual experiences, which I've talked a lot about on my podcast. We may talk about that a little bit. But having those experiences and then try to explain that to somebody, make sense of it, and even more so, try to have them see your point of view and maybe even take on your idea of the truth. We all believe in so many things that simply are invisible to us, or out of our perception or our five senses, that we really can't prove, that we believe are there, or those experiences, or those entities, those gods, those former gods, those whatever it is you believe in, right? We spend most of our life trying to prove to other people what we believe in, when we can't even prove it really to ourselves. I mean, if you believe in a higher being, where's your true and absolute proof of that? No matter what experience you have on anything in life, it really all happens within your mind and your brain. And we'll come back around to that in a second. But let's go back to the word spirituality, right? And so I wanted to break that down a little bit more like I said, most of the definitions keep trying to intertwine spirituality and religion. I do believe those are two different things. Spirituality to me is encompasses many processes or mystical experiences or ways of the way you go about your belief system. And I don't think that is anything super solid you could wrap your head around with spirituality. Now, religion in other ways is kind of similar to that, because many of the things that religions encompass and believe in and preach and instill within their members, many of those things are not hard and fast proofs behind what they are believing in or what their doctrine is. And I'm not discounting any of those, and I'm sure there's lots of truth in those things. But the bottom line is that most of the stuff that falls within the religious area or the areas of religion really are very, very difficult to prove. You know, like I said, I'm not here to convince you guys of anything, and I'm not here to try to prove anything to you. I'm just going to talk about some things and maybe get you to think critically about some things and to maybe relook at the way you approach things as truth, and maybe the way you believe in things or the things that you believe in. That's all that this conversation is really about. So let's talk about spirituality first. So let's just break it down real simply. I'm a simple guy, very simple approach to most things in life. Let's take the word spirituality and break it up into two pieces, right? So spiritual and the last three letters ITY. If you put those together, it's spirituality, not spiritual. Now, spiritual can be a lot of different things. I hear so many people go, well, I'm spiritual, or are you spiritual? You know, being spiritual can mean a lot of different things, because the word spiritual really talks about your belief in the spirit world or the other world that you cannot see, touch, taste, feel, any of that. If you want to lump in a lot of ways of thinking here, being spiritual could also mean that you believe in a God, you believe in angels, you believe in fairies, you believe in the devil, you believe in Lucifer, or any other entity that is considered a spirit or in the spiritual realm can be lumped into being spiritual. So somebody that's, say, a Christian and somebody who practices witchcraft could also be both considered spiritual, because they are dealing with the unseen world that we cannot put our hands around, or physically touch, physically feel, see, taste, hear, any of that. Now, we might believe we do, but do we really? I don't think that's actually true. The term spiritual is kind of wrapped around in so many aspects, but really I think it's the belief or the act of believing or the interaction with what, once again, we would call the spiritual world or the spirit world, that world that exists beyond us, which I think most everybody would believe there's something that's outside of us or outside of this reality. I'm sure there's some that don't, but that's okay. But if you add that ITY at the end and call it spirituality, that suffix or that ending of a word means the quality, state, or degree of. So it's really the quality or the state of being spiritual. And once again, being spiritual can mean a lot of different things. That is so wide and varied in definition that it's absolutely incredible. Back to religion. I think religion could be considered spiritual or spirituality, but I don't think it's exclusive to religion. I think religion and the word itself is more or less the practices and the ways that people put doctrine together, the kind of the processes of how someone in that belief system would go about reaching the pinnacle of connection with their God or their deity. I'm having a hard time putting that into words. Religion is more of a mechanical and logical process to the approach of spirituality, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I'm not saying that's truth. If you go and look at all the different religions around the world, they all have their practices and their procedures and their methods for getting wherever it is that they believe they're going to get with this practice. And that all really ends in, not ends, but it tends to find its way into what we would consider the spiritual realm. I do believe, though, that we have to be careful with the words we use and the things that we just kind of throw about, because I've run across a lot of people, a lot of clients, a lot of different people that say, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Okay, I'm like, what does that mean exactly? What does it mean to be spiritual? Well, if I were to summarize being spiritual, I think that my definition would be more like the practices of meditation and connection and listening and involving yourself in what at least I believe I'm connecting with, that is on the outside of myself, outside of this reality perhaps, but definitely not of what I would consider the real world. Now, is there a real world or not? I don't know. I mean, we could argue that all day long. However, what we experience that gets generated within our mind, we kind of talked about this before, all happens, everything that we see and experience that we consider the real world or real experiences happen within our skull. The processes of the brain and the mind and consciousness, it's kind of hard to figure out where those divide and where those combine. However, we'll just talk about the brain for simplicity, right? The brain kind of takes all of these things that we're bringing in. 11 million bits of information per second are bombarding our mind. That's a lot, right? I haven't talked about this in a while. But our conscious mind really breaks it down to a manageable amount of 40 bits per second, which kind of tells us that the part that we think is in charge is really a very clumsy and slow process for learning. But the rest of that goes straight into the subconscious. So we are collecting whatever it is that's outside of ourselves, that's bombarding us with tons and tons of information, and it is being integrated within us in some way, shape, or form. The things we see with our eyes, hear with our ears, smell with our nose, taste with our mouth, feel with our skin, all that stuff gets kind of thrown into our mind, and the brain also has to kind of take all of that. Remember that our brain is housed in a dark space. It's like feeding a bunch of stuff into your computer through all the things, the peripherals like the mouse and the monitor and the keyboard and all these different things, and then the signals that come through the motherboard and all these different things, and the computer then makes sense of it all and it puts it all into a logical thing, puts it on our screen, and we have an experience. I believe our mind, our brain works the same way. I do believe that it has to fill in the gaps in many ways, and it does that mostly, I think, through the experiences we have in life, and it just has to do it and figure out how to give us an experience. The role of the mind, in my opinion, is that its job is to consistently give us an experience, a movie to watch, the movie of our life. And even when we sleep, it's the same way. That's why we have dreams, when we can remember them, of course. But I think that the mind knows that it always has to give us an experience. And sometimes when we go to sleep and we have dreams, they get a little weird because the mind is kind of absent of some of the normal input through the five senses. And so it's kind of scrambling and trying to figure out a way to put it all together. And there you go. We have some of the strangest dreams. Some of them don't make any doggone sense, but that's okay. The mind is really a very powerful thing, and it really does these things so fast and so quickly. And you got to realize, though, that this is a process that takes time. That's why the older we get, the easier it is for the mind to create and make these experiences richer and stronger and better. Just think about that, right? When we're younger, it seems like new experiences take longer to learn. Things just kind of happen slower. We learn slower. Our experiences just are not built up there for the mind to help us progress and create a much more elaborate experience. And I think we got to remember that since everything happens within our actual skull, that's where everything is being fed into, and the processes are gearing up and chugging along, that we have to maybe even think or look back or step back and look at what is it that is actually real? What is it that's actually truth? So if our mind is being fed by electrical impulses, basically, everything that is fed into our five senses is electrical impulses through nerves pulsing along or pulsing with energy and electricity. All that stuff is just being blasted into this, 2 or 3 pound thing of flesh inside of our skull, and it has the ability to make sense or give us experiences. What is really real? Is anything really real? I tell you, I've really been challenged with that a lot more lately. Especially that I'm gotten older now. The experiences and the amount of things that are buried in my subconscious and pulled out when necessary. The world of the cosmos and the universe is probably stored in there, probably in everybody's mind. As they get older, it just builds up, and the hard drive gets full of all kinds of things to draw on. Not necessarily always accessible to our conscious mind. I've discovered that, and I'm sure everybody has discovered that, sometimes we try to think of a word and it just doesn't pop into our conscious mind. We know what it is. We've said it 1,000 times. We've imagined it 1,000 times. We've tried to explain it 1,000 times. But for some reason, it's just blank. If you just put that intention into your mind and let it know that you're trying to uncover that word or that phrase or that whatever it is you're trying to pull up, it'll eventually find its way into that database of our mind, and it'll pull it out. And it's there. Everything is there. But as we talked about before, our conscious mind is a much, much slower processor than our subconscious or our unconscious processes. Those are lightning speed, huge database of so many things, probably contains everything that is known to the universe or the cosmos, and entwined with all the experiences that we've had in life and all the experiences that others have brought to us, all the conversations we have. Everything is just really what makes us who we are. However, I don't believe much of that is actual truth or actual reality. I mean, just looking at our quote-unquote reality, there's a lot of questions that come up. I mean, there's so many things that don't make sense. I mean, I could go on and on about it, but I'm not going to. I think if you were really to look around at what we've been taught and what we've been fed and what we are conditioned to believe, I think you will find a lot of inadequacies in those descriptions and the proofs of those things. Now, we all have to settle on some kind of proof, some kind of perception or some kind of truth that helps guide our experiences in life. Yes, we change our mind every 10 seconds, and we change our perception or our truth, and we listen to everybody. The old saying goes, right? If you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything. True, I do believe you need to hold on to a truth. But if that truth is carrying you through life and you're not getting anywhere with it, and it feels like all you do is the same thing every day, the same experiences come in your life, it may be time to find a new truth. Truth and perception and what people believe in, I don't think they really realize how that comes about. Through the conditioning as a young child, with the brain wide open like a parachute, everything comes in irregardless of anything else. There's no shields, there's no antivirus, there's no anything. And so we get conditioned at a younger age, and sometimes as we go through life, when things keep being repeated and pushed on us, that we become conditioned and put into this mode of this constant recording that plays in our mind, and life just goes on like every day, and it's like we don't have to think about it, which is cool. But at the same time, I think too many of us have settled on the truth that we think is the truth. And maybe it's time for us, including me, to periodically challenge that truth, and not to go about changing your belief system. If you believe in something really emphatically, I'm not saying you need to change that. But what is wrong with looking at the alternative side of things to see if there's anything that would add to or help you with a new truth or enhance the truth that you have? Because there's so much information in the times we live in now. You can go on the internet and find anything you want to find. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But the thing is that this is an information age. And there's no reason why we should settle on living life based on one truth or a few truths and realize at the end of our life that what did we really do? And so I think that's why we're here. I do believe we are here to be spiritual, to connect with those things outside of ourselves. In that definition, connect with those things that are outside of what we consider truth. Why not? What's it going to hurt to sit behind a computer, research, grab a book, read something different, challenge yourself? If nothing else, you bring in more experiences and more knowledge into your mind that can help you have a much more enriched experience in life and give you much more to feed on or to engage the brain in. Because I do believe we are here to learn. We are learning machines in a way, just like artificial intelligence is. You turn it loose, learn, and what does it do? It learns patterns, it learns things, well, at a much faster rate than us human beings can, apparently. We are similar in that way, is that we learn as we go. And when we quit learning and we become stale and everything's the same all the time, then what are we really doing? Are we just existing, or are we living life? And I think those are two distinct, different things. I do believe that we need to really stretch ourselves and give ourselves enough of a challenge to maybe create some doubt, which will then spur on more learning. And I think you get the point that we're going to move into new facets of our life, new challenges, new ideas, maybe new careers, new things. But if you don't make that change, then nothing changes. Now, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with consistency and doing the same thing over and over again. But if you are not satisfied with that, which I'm sure most of us are not, then you have to create change. And the way to create change very quickly or very drastically is to go out and challenge your truths. Go about, if you believe in something really emphatically, go out to try and disprove it and watch what happens. You may disprove it, but most of the time you'll find a whole nother side of the story. And it will really then become a decision point. What do I really believe in? Okay, well, maybe I don't really know, because here I'm seeing all this other information, all these other facts, all these other people with these experiences that don't match this at all. And so maybe what I believe in, maybe it's not factual or actual, right? And so in this way, we become more global, we become more expanded. And I think that's what spirituality is all about as well. It's the expansion and the evolution of connection with that information and those energies and those entities and those things outside of ourselves. And I think that's where we will find our real truth. And I believe that there's so many truths to have out there that, at least for me, I cannot settle on one single thing as truth. Because everything that I research or begin to research and dig into then becomes kind of perpetual in my perception. My perception begins to change some. And as your perception changes, your subconscious mind or your unconscious mind, all those deep caverns, will then begin to bring in everything into your reality that support these perceptions you're beginning to develop. And so it will gray out all those things that you don't need because they don't support your new truth. And so if you decide you want to change your life, that's one of the things you'll have to do is you'll have to change your perception and your idea of the truth or truths. And there's no other real way around it. I do believe we're not here to be stale and to just do the same things over and over every day, expecting a different result, which is most of us, right? We don't understand why we can never have money. We can never, have the right job. We can never find the right partner. We always get the same stupid things happen in our life, and we wonder why. It's because we have hardened ourselves into a perception that is being supported by our subconscious. It's like, that's what you believe in, that's what we're going to give you. And eventually that becomes a program that runs in the background. Not eventually, that's what happens. It's a program that runs in the background, just like in a computer. There's a lot of programs that run back there that you don't even know are happening, but they support the experience you have on the screen or your interaction with a computer. Same thing with us. Our subconscious mind is that program that runs behind the scenes that supports the reality that we get in our mind. And so I do challenge you guys to try something different tomorrow, today, right now. Why not? And see what happens. It's a little uncomfortable sometimes at first. For most of my life, I have totally bought into the globe model that we're wildly spinning through space and we're going 1,000 miles an hour, at the Earth equator and hurtling through the universe. Maybe we are. But the thing is that, I kept turning away the flat Earth ideas. And when I went to start researching it, and I started researching it more, and I started researching it more. And funny thing is, all of a sudden, I started seeing things in my reality that were beginning to support the flat Earth. What you focus on becomes your reality. And then when I started researching the Matrix or virtual realities, that were or simulation theory, all of a sudden those realities or those things in my reality started showing up. It's just as simple as, you bought a new car. Let's say you bought a red Corvette. And, all of a sudden you're seeing red Corvettes everywhere. You're like, what the heck? The thing is, those red Corvettes have always been there, but your perception and your attention and your truth is now centered on red Corvettes. And so now, all of a sudden your subconscious mind has said, okay, you believe in red Corvettes. Let's show them all to you because they've been there all along. But your mind didn't need to focus on that because that was not something important to your perception or truth. Just like in a video game, once again, what's to say that everything in a video game is not always there? The landscapes and the trees and the houses and the cars in front of you or whatever, they're not necessarily perpetually there. It's like the computer game or the program only renders what's necessary for you to have the experience in whatever scene or fight or drive or something that you're trying to do on this game. It would be too laborious and too megabyte laden to give you an entire universe on your screen. Most computers cannot handle that, so it only gives you what you need to have the experience that you are focusing on. It's the same thing with us. It really is. I'm not trying to say we live in a virtual reality. I personally have become a little more convinced that we are, but that's beside the point. It doesn't matter what this reality is. We are rendering our experience. We really are. And it's just as simple as that. It's simple brain math. Simple brain mechanics. We are experiencing things that we believe are real, our truth, and our subconscious and our unconscious and our programs mirror that truth, and they give us the experience that we have accepted. So if you're not happy with the experiences and the truths and the way your life is going, it is time to change. And it is time to change for you, and it is time to change for me. And I'm not saying you need to change. It's just a highly suggested thing to try. Why not? It's not going to hurt you or anybody else. I'm not saying rush out and quit your job and start a whole new thing and, start some new commune or something based on a new idea. I'm not saying you got to go to crazy, drastic measures to make changes. It could be very simple, just like the Red Corvette experience. Not hard. If you want to attract money or you want to attract the perfect mate, you have to put that idea, you have to put that truth into your mind, because your subconscious, unconscious mind does not know the difference between what you make up in your mind and what you consider reality. So why not build your world? Why not experience what you want to experience, have what you want to have? And because the ride here in each of our human lives is not very long, let's just make a go at it. Why not? Try something new. All right, I will get off my rant. A bump over to my website when you get a chance, lifebymazak.com, LIFEBYMAZAK.com. I have a lot of things there that you can poke around on, services, products, podcasts, blogs, things like that. Reach out to me and let's work together, because I tell you what, I have learned so many things by having the clients that have come to me, people that have come to me to talk and to work with me. And I learn just as much as they learn. And when we learn together, we can change this reality into something much more beautiful, much different than it is. As we all can see around us, it is crazy right now. It is absolutely insanity, it seems. So I think working together with everybody, we can affect a change that is much more wholesome. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to working with you. Stay strong and live your life.